Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, issue number 9 from Marvel Comics. In this issue, Mark takes the glitter drug, which makes him more insane than usual, and he's forced to fight his inner demons. And we start off this issue. At first, I thought this was like going to be like an underwater steel tank that's all chained up, and Fairchild was in here, and this is how they get rid of him. Like, they don't kill him necessarily, but they like basically dump him in the ocean in a metal casket. But nah, this is just a way to keep Mark from hurting others while he's on the drug. And then we go a little bit into the past to find out how Mark got to this point. And so we see Mark talking to Hank, and Mark asks, do you know how Mysterium is made? And Mark's like, I have no idea what that is. And he basically explains that it is a metamaterial created by mutants from ultra compressed carbons. And Mark's just like, right, sure. Which is basically my reaction because I have no idea what any of that means. But he's able to explain that glitter attacks the central nervous system. It's basically a stimulant for that. What exasperates the problem with glitter? What differs glitter from any other street drug that does the same? The fact that there's magic involved. And so Mysterium can render that magic inert, which basically means we can cure this. However, the production of Mysterium was limited to a special task force of mutants in Krakoa, which I guess is no longer there. But thankfully, Hank realizes, hey, this is made of carbons. And I was working with carbons almost 20 years ago, and I created a similar particle that I called the PIM particles. So I will technically be able to create a cure, but I cannot create enough of it to cure everybody. So here you go. Here's your cure for glitter. And he gives it to Mark, and Mark goes back to his group and says, we got the cure, but we've got a narrow window in which we can use it. It's too complex to mass produce, and there's no way we can distribute it. So as the number of glitter rises, our ability to help the addicts declines. So they're like, okay, well, let's just cut off the glitter supply. And they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. But until then, we can only help the group of people that no longer want to become addicts. So people that have taken glitter and they want to get off, but they can't, because if you get off glitter, you die. We'll target them first, and we'll give them the cures. And then others who want to continue taking it, well, they're kind of on their own for now. And that's when Tigra realizes what Mark is planning. And the plan is that Mark is going to take the drug himself so that he can see how it works. He can first off see how the glitter affects him, and then he's going to take the cure and see how the cure works. Like, what are going to be the side effects, if any? Does it actually work? So, of course, Tigra is pissed off. He's like, no, you're not going to do that. Give it to someone else. And Mark's like, well, Hunter's Moon is a doctor, so he can't do it. You recent soldiers are post-human, so you can't do it. And I like how Tigra's like, give it to 8-Ball. And Mark's like, 8-Ball could die. Tigra's like, well, you can die. Basically, she's upset that Mark always has to pretty much sacrifice himself for others when someone else can maybe do it. But Mark's like, no, I can't let anyone else do it. I got to do it myself. So he takes it, and that's when we cut to the present day where we see him inside the little tank, and he's just beating the crap out of the walls to the point where his fists are all bloody, and he's just going insane. And then that's when he starts meeting like some of his inner demons. The first one is Fairchild, and Fairchild basically explains that the glitter is a nervous system stimulant, and that, you know, the cure is going to hit harder on you than on some civilian, right? Because your brain is all messed up. Like, you don't have the nervous system similar, like the brain structure similar to others, because of the fact that you've kept dying and coming back, and you've had a god messing with your mind for so long. Like, you're insane, literally. So you know that this drug's going to hit you harder than usual. And that's when he sees this other figure. I have no idea who this is. My knowledge of Moon Knight is super, super low. Kind of like my knowledge with magic. I've seen him in like a couple of stuff, but that's pretty much it. And the stuff I've seen him would be like Marvel Rivals, the Moon Knight TV series. I read some of Moon Knight in his debut run with Werewolf by Night, but I think that version of Moon Knight has been retconned. So yeah, my knowledge of Moon Knight is pretty much non-existent. So I have no idea who this is. So if anyone who is knowledgeable on Moon Knight could be kind enough to share who this character is and what his relationship to Moon Knight is. That'd be kind of nice. But he basically explains that the problem with Moon Knight is that he doesn't thrive on violence. He thrives on pain. That's what's gotten you this far. You sabotage every good thing in your life to ensure that you'll always get your fix. And then we have this vampire character. I also have no idea who this is. So if you can be kind enough to explain who this character is and what his relationship to Moon Knight is, that'd be great. Because I feel like I'm kind of missing some things. Because they're showing characters that I guess have some kind of importance to Mark's life. But I don't know who these characters are. And this issue doesn't do like a little notes thing at the bottom, like an editor's note, like, you know, this, like asterisk, this is so-and-so from this issue. So I can't look it up myself. I got no idea who these two characters are. But this character basically explains that Mark is obsessed with pain. He tries to sabotage everything that's good. He also likes to deal with guilt, because guilt feeds into the pain. So the guilt of not telling your little friends, your little werewoman, that the only reason you've brought them into your life is to eventually drive them away when the hunger pains get too bad. So you basically need to keep feeding on pain. You need more pain to fill that yawning hole in your core. This is just a fact. I'm like, that's kind of sad. But he goes to attack this vampire dude when, of course, the vampire dude disappears because he's not really there. This is all just a hallucination. And then we get this other character who, again, I have no idea who it is, but Mark seems to really not want him to be here. I have a guess. This is just a quick Google search that I did. At first, it looked like it was Midnight Man, but then I'm like, I don't think that's Midnight Man. Maybe this is Midnight, and Midnight was like a sidekick that Moon Knight had that died a couple of times, and the last time he died was by Moon Knight's hands. Is that who this is? If not, someone can be kind enough to explain this as well. Basically, if there's someone that can explain who all of Mark's inner demons were, that would be nice, because I have no idea who any of these characters are. And I wish that I did, because I feel like this whole hallucination drug trip moment would hit harder if I just had an inkling of an idea of who these characters are. The only one that I know, obviously, is Fairchild, because he was debuted in this run, so I know him. I don't know anyone else. So I don't know who the Black Skull weird looking dude is. I don't know who the vampire dude is. I don't know who this costume tuxedo dude is. I think it's Midnight, but I have no idea. Eventually, Mark goes to punch the figure, and he disappears. And the figure is basically just taunting Mark about how, again, Mark just wants the pain, and how Mark seems to embracing this character's point of view. He basically says, I'm very into what you've become. Letting the wild dog off the chain to go after vermin, going after Fairchild with murder in your eyes and blood on your breath, kidnapping cops, taking drugs. Feels good, doesn't it? Basically, it seems like this guy is almost like the devil's advocate. He's like the demon on Mark's shoulder that's whispering, like, why don't you just do all these evil things? It feels good. And then he also explains that Mark is going down a road that's similar to him. Mark tries to deny this, but then he says, really? When was the last time you went to therapy, Mark? You promised that you would after the Avengers took their boot off your neck, but you kept making excuses not to. And you figured it out. You realized that you didn't want to be better. Not when you can be worse. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I like that line. But eventually, just all of this gets too much, and he passes out. Or at least he collapses. And as he collapses, we see the figure standing over him. And they basically say, Jake and Steven can't help you here. This is all you. So look us in the face and see what you really are. And then he wakes up. And he's strapped to a bed. A bunch of wires. Well, IVs into him. And Hunter's Moon is there. Basically says, you know, sorry for the restraints, but you had some very violent episodes. And we figured that restraining you would be wise. And Mark explains that that was horrible. And Hunter's Moon's like, we gather that. Looks like your vitals have returned to an acceptable baseline. We believe you've been through the worst. Do you still have the urge for more glitter? Mark's like, God, no. They're like, okay, well, looks like we might have a cure. So what's next? And I'm going to stop it there. There's actually more. There's like maybe a third of an issue left, but I don't want to spoil everything. I like this issue a lot, though it did confuse me. Again, mostly just it's my fault, I guess. Though I do kind of believe in Stan Lee's I don't know the exact quote, but basically treating every issue like it's the reader's first time picking up a comic. I kind of like that, and that is a thing. I've been doing a lot of retro reading. Maybe I should do some reviews on what I'm reading. But I've been reading a lot of like old comics from like the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s. I freaking love those old stuff. It's so good. But I do notice that as soon as I finish issue 1 and go to issue 2, they always do like a recap of what I just finished reading. And I guess it could be a little bit annoying, but at the same time, I get why they do it. And I kind of would have liked that with this. Not necessarily where you got to recap what just happened, because they kind of do that a little bit in the beginning with text. But if you're going to like have someone appear or discuss something that happened in a previous series, please like let me know. The only time we get an editor's note is when Hank Pym is talking about the Pym particles, and then we get a like, this happened in Wasp 2023 run. And I'm like, okay, but you have these characters showing up and discussing things that you assume I should know, but I don't. I have no idea who these characters are. Other than Fairchild, I don't know who this vampire dude is, who this like dude with the all black with the somewhat grayish skull design is, or who the other figure is. I think it's Midnight. I don't know. So it's like all these characters have a connection to Mark, and they're all basically like feeding into his worst thoughts, his worst subconscious ideals. That he likes the pain. He's going to sabotage everything good. That he is more, I guess, like Midnight. I'm just going to assume that that's Midnight. He's more like Midnight than he wants to believe he is. So like all the little negative voices that Mark has, they're kind of amplifying it. But the thing is I have no idea who these characters are. So I don't know like how big of a deal it is for them to show up and be saying these things. So I kind of would have liked to know who they are. Just a little brief thing. So that's my only issue with this issue. Is that you have these characters that are really important to Mark, but I have no idea who they are. So their whole scenes just don't impact me as much as maybe they would someone else who is a big Moon Knight fan and knows who they are. But other than that, like I like where the story is going. I like the artwork. I'm not going to spoil the last half of the issue, but the last half was really good, especially the cliffhanger. Cliffhanger has me really excited to see where the next issue is going to go. Let's just say it ends with a bang, literally. But other than that, yeah, my only nitpick is that I don't know who those characters are. You could, I guess, blame that on me for not reading everything Moon Knight related or anything Marvel related. But then again, like I'm only one person. There's only so much free time I have to be able to read. And if I need to read all this other stuff just to know what's going on in one issue, I think that's more fault of the writer than the reader. So just something as simple as an editor's note. This character is so-and-so from this issue. Even then, it's like you're not explaining who the character really is. Like you're telling me here's where you can go to read it for yourself. But at least that's something. That's like the bare minimum you can do. If nothing else, like I know it would seem too much like an exposition. It would seem a little bit weird to have like just a narrator bubble pop up or an editor's note to pop up to explain who these characters are. But still, it would be very appreciated. Maybe you'll take readers a little bit out of the issue, but it would also help me like understand who these characters are and their importance to the story. So yeah, that's my only like gripe with this issue. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. I thought this was awesome. And I highly recommend checking out the series if you haven't already. This was great. I'm loving this run so far. And minus a couple of things here and there, it's done a pretty decent job of keeping me in the know. This is like the issue with the biggest problem. The issue where that's been the biggest problem is this right here. Other than that, like anytime they explain things, like they have something pop up that happened in a previous issue or whatever, they've done a decent enough job of kind of explaining a little bit of what happened. So this is a jumping on point for Moon Knight. Like anyone who wants to get into Moon Knight, check out the series. This is a good jumping on point. It's just this is the one issue where I wish I had known more, or that they could at least just tell me a little bit more, because yeah, I don't know who these characters are. I'm kind of rambling at this point. This was good. I liked it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.